My name is Alannah Robins. I'm a visual artist based in Connemara, and my artistic practice is really concerned with our place in nature, people's place in nature, our relationship with place. My practice has been concerned with, kind of informed, I suppose, by a project going on in Connemara of restoration of Sitka spruce forest to native woodland, and very much focused on trees, and been working a lot with paper, cut paper and light installation and immersive installations. But this exhibition really marks quite a new point in my practice. I suppose what I found when I was, this wasn't the plan I had for this exhibition. So this exhibition is called Comfort Ye My People. And I had plans to work with a kind of a meditation on nature as I think revelation, not veil, was the proposal I put in. And I found myself recently just completely compelled to simply draw the mountains. I live in Connemara and travel through this really beautiful glacial valley, the Alannah Valley, on my way to work at the studio every morning. And I don't know, I think maybe it's something to do with the kind of time of uncertainty, or the crisis around the climate that we're all experiencing at the moment. Maybe it's something to do with that need for certainty, or I just felt I just want to draw the mountains, and every day becoming more and more preoccupied by the same mountains, and that's what I started to do. And I think it's really interesting because, like, drawing as a practice, I suppose we can see it as a kind of a touchstone, you know, the first engagement with a subject can be to draw, and to draw, I think, can be seen as a way of understanding. If you draw an object, the level of focus that's required is really, it's intense. And I found then that in drawing these mountains, it became almost like a meditation. And I became more and more familiar with my subject. And I noticed different nuances and there was a kind of a growing familiarity with my subject that I have to say I really enjoyed. And I loved the simplicity of it. Just the going back to the simplicity of the pencil and the paper. And I suppose as well, I felt I didn't want to mediate that. I didn't want the art to be mediated. I wanted it to be as simple as me, the pencil, my eye, and the paper. And that's kind of in response to, I suppose, in more lately, in recent years, I've been working with these paper cuts and light installation and immersive spaces where I would use light to animate a space. I was bringing it back to the simplicity of the drawing. And yet then in this exhibition now, light has, as always, become really an important piece, an important material and an important element in the animation of the space. So what I have in this exhibition, there are two really long drawings, two 8-meter drawings. Each of them is panoramic, and they were that kind of sense of exploring the space that you're in. So I explored each of these two long drawings over here one of a coastal area and one of this Aina Valley. And I drew, going around in a panoramic motion, that landscape. Each time I went round in the circle, the tidal levels were coming in. And I suppose rather than, I didn't want this to be a big kind of post-apocalyptic scaremongering, or even, while the times are frightening right now, it was more of an urge to like think geological time, and the slowness, just think some way of connecting us with geological time, that over the millennia these tides will rise, and that sense that the mountains could be almost the same. I love that book by Andri Snare Magnusson, who he writes about, like, he asks the question, what will the year be when your granddaughter is 94 or something like that, and to try and imagine our love and our scope for familial love in terms of the planet we're on. Because I think that thing of trying to imagine geological time is so difficult for us. And in that sense, because all we have is this moment. And so in that sense as well, you know, these panoramic drawings are going around and the fence stays the same. And of course, you know, I don't expect that fence post to be there in millennia, but it's that sense that all we have is this one moment. All we have is this moment whereby to kind of try and imagine those millennia. So that's two of the works. And then I had this I love kinetic work. I have an aspiration to be a kinetic artist. I don't have all the skills, unfortunately. And I really wanted to animate some of these pieces. And for that reason, I went down the road of printmaking, because I thought I would scroll some of these drawings. And so that's why then I started to look at printmaking. And I wanted this really low-tech, slow-moving image of the narrative scrolling by. And that's also why, I suppose, in some of my other work, I use this paper cut. I was so inspired by the Javanese paper puppets. We visited a puppet museum in Lübeck in the north of Germany a few years ago, and I was just so inspired by that low-tech moving image. So then this was going to be a moving landscape. And in the end, with this exhibition, actually, I didn't go down that road, even though that brought me down into printmaking, brought me down the road of printmaking. I ended up using the static images without any bells and whistles, but what I did use was rotating lights. And yeah, I'm kind of really excited about that, because while the images are static on the wall, I've used two different speeds of light. I've one lighthouse beam that kind of slowly sweeps the space. And I think gives a real sense of time. And the other light I've used is like an emergency, like a Garda light, and it goes quite fast. It's quite stroby, actually, which was something that surprised me. I'm quite excited by that sense of animation that it layers onto these static images. So there's the one of the etchings I have. I've brought in the tide level rising, starting just with this very simple panoramic 1 meter plate. And I worked with a printmaker to bring in the water level rising. And in the drawing and in this one, that became like an absence rather than a drawn line, or it became an absence of landscape. And I think it's quite interesting to look at, just, when you look at the 12 bends, it is the Aina Valley completely flooded. It looks so familiar as well in another way. Doesn't look like the Aina Valley, but it looks like a rock pool. It looks like the tide has come in on some rocks, or it's like the sand on a beach. And yeah, I find that even looking at it, when I look at the 5 states of the one landscape, even myself, I feel quite surprised in the change, and also the familiarity. And then over here, we've got the first image that I started with etching is of the Derryclare Mountain, which is a mountain I look at from my studio. But I'm an enthusiastic hill walker, and I love that sense of being in the mountains, and that view is like as if I was to walk out the studio door, walk up the mountain and over the other side. And again, I had like really experimented with bringing in the tide level in that. And it wasn't what I decided to use in the end in this exhibition. The installation here of the plate, the etchings hanging, was something I came to, I don't know, throughout the process of making the work. And I just loved that rice paper. It's so kind of fluttery and light, and I like the fact that you can walk through those etchings and they flutter and move. And again, there's something about time, there's something about that mountain not changing, there's something about moving between them and making them move. And then when the lights are on and strobing them, the shadows are moving. And that's just one of the materials I love to work with, which is quite funny because I started out as a stone carver when I was in art college, and now I'm working with shadow and light and paper, just really simple materials. And then the last element in the exhibition, which I was kind of developing along the same time, is I've these drawings of archaeological remains, and I started that work when I was in residency in Kilrillig in Kerry. And just there's just such a strong sense of history everywhere. It's like archaeological remains are thrown around like rubbish all over the place, just stones everywhere. And when I was there, I was really moved by someone saying, like, I was talking about our place in nature, and this other artist said to me, oh yes, well, now I'm going to try and take the humans out of nature. And I was thinking, well, how do we do that? So if you try and take away the stones from the landscape that are put there by humans, I mean, how do we know which ones have been put there? It's so confusing. Which ones were put there by a human and which were put there by a glacier? Well, we know like some of the huge ones were put there by glaciers, but just walking around those fields in Kerry, like one of these drawings is of a collapsed oratory, but on a man on a galloping horse now wouldn't notice that it wasn't, just a field of stones. And so that sense of like, we're so intertwined. And I also, even while I was, I suppose, talking about my work being about our place in nature, mankind in nature, that's a kind of problematic thing, I think, even to talk about, because obviously we are part of nature, and so it's not us and it's not an us and them. So I think in those pieces of work, over your city's grass will grow, that sense of, where do we stop and nature start? And then the sense of, the grass growing back over the stones, taking us back. So that again is a kind of a meditation on time, which I suppose all the work is really, you know. When I was thinking about it, I thought, oh, yeah, this I suppose this work is like about time and water. And then that's when I kind of realised that's the title of that book, of Magnusson's book, that has moved me so much. And I hadn't kind of realised that I'd come around to that kind of thought myself.